Welcome to ProjectME, the podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Carter, the founder of ProjectME, multimillionaire entrepreneur, former TV newscaster, money-making expert, female empowerment speaker, and self-proclaimed office supply addict. My mission is to take the mystery out of making big money. Every week on ProjectME, the podcast, I'll share success tips, strategies, and stories from other entrepreneurs, experts, and millionaires, showing you exactly how you can achieve your most exceptional life. Now let's get to it. You all know I love sharing my secrets of how I went from $17,000 a year to a multimillionaire. My top essential tool for managing my two successful businesses, plus my crazy life, is my paper planner. But not any random planner, specifically my Inner Guide yearly planner. The Inner Guide planner doesn't just organize my schedule, it helps me map out and discover my goals, dreams, self-care, and keeps my millionaire mindset on track. I want you all to get planning right away for 2019. So I arranged to get a special Inner Guide discount exclusive to my ProjectME posse. Go pick out your favorite yearly planner at inner-guide.com. And at checkout, use the code ProjectME 15% off, and you will receive 15% off your entire order. If you are driving or multitasking and can't write this down, the Inner Guide link and code is in my Instagram bio at ProjectME with Tiffany. And remember, as I always say, you are either planning for success or heading to failure. You are listening to the podcast ProjectME with Tiffany Carter. Hey guys, how are you doing today? I know that so many of you feel stuck in doing something that you don't love or you just don't feel passionate about, or maybe you're frustrated in getting your side hustle to grow big enough to quit your job. I get it. I've been there. I want to know that there's other people who've been in your shoes and there's a way out, and there's always a better and easier way for willing to listen and learn. So I brought on this awesome boss babe who was in your shoes. In fact, she was a lawyer, okay? And that's a lucrative career by itself, but it didn't light her up. And so Dani Watson, who I have on, she's now the founder and CEO of The Clique, which is a digital-based coaching business. And she took a side hustle into a full-time business and was able to quit her previous job in just 3 months. And her business now has only been around 3 years. So that's pretty damn impressive by itself. Welcome, Dani. How are you?
I am so good. And thank you for the introduction. And I'm so happy to be here today and connecting with you.
Well, I am really excited. Like I've told you before we started, I handpick all my guests for very specific reasons. And I knew that you had a story that so many people could relate to and feel understood, and also learn from your strategy, because obviously you did something right. I mean, this entrepreneur thing isn't like a guarantee, guys. It's actually almost a guarantee you'll fail. It's more likely you'll fail than not to be negative, but those are the stats and facts. And what did you do, Dani, to set this stage up? Like, take us back to when you were a lawyer, it wasn't working for you. What happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right in that a lot of businesses do, unfortunately, not succeed. But I think when you're at a place where it feels like rock bottom, that sometimes lights that fire in you and you have no other choice but to make it succeed. And I think that was a big part of what fueled my success. The fact that I was so utterly miserable in my job. I think, if the job had been kind of okay, I probably would have coasted along in that job for a lot longer than what I did. But it was the fact that I was literally going to work every day and I was crying. I was miserable. I was stressed. I was overwhelmed. And then on top of that, I found out that my fiance was cheating on me. I had all of this debt as well, which I had no idea how I was ever going to pay off. So it was like the collective impact of all of those things really just lit a fire inside of me to change my situation. I guess the issue for me at the time was that I just did not know what it was that I wanted to do, because I'd gone down this very sort of pigeonholed route where I'd ended up in a legal career, basically because I watched Legally Blonde. I thought that that's how it was going to be. Sadly, that was not the case. And I just never gave myself any other options. I never gave myself, chance to explore any other options. And so when it came to then, wanting to start a business, I was like, well, what on earth do I do? And I just so happened to be, I think I was Googling what business do I start? I think I actually typed that into Google and somehow managed to miraculously land on Marie Forleo's website. And I mean, I know the coaching industry is huge in the US, but a few years ago, it's changed a bit now, but in the UK, nobody really knows what a coach, well, they didn't do at the time, really knew what coaching was. So I was like, what is coaching? What is the coaching industry? And I started to do a little bit of digging, and all of a sudden there was this online world of entrepreneurship and online coaching and, women working from their laptops that I didn't even knew existed rather. And it just felt at that point that, right, okay, this is the thing that I really, really would love to do. And I think because, as I said, I was so unhappy with where I was, I just didn't want to wait to start it. I just didn't want to, kind of sit on this idea for months and months and months. I wanted to get started with it straight away. And when I did start it, I hustled my ass off, doing everything I could to get it off the ground as quickly as I could. So yes, that required a lot of very early mornings, and a lot of very late nights. But, if you want something and you want things to happen fast, there has to be some sort of sacrifice. So yeah, I mean, I was getting up at like 5 a.m. and doing my, my miracle morning routine. And then I'd start working on my business. I'd come home in the evening and I'd sort of be in bed again, working on my business from my laptop. And I think sometimes, fortunately now I don't need to do that sort of, those long hours, but that's the kind of sort of drive that you need to have in the get-go, especially if you are in a full-time job. If you do want to get your business off the ground. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And then I was coaching and I realized that, oh my God, this is an industry that I am so passionate about. Why do not more people know about this, at least in the UK? And so I wanted to really inspire people to create their own success story as a coach. And so I formed the Clique on that basis, that was going to be a platform to inspire and help other women build their own coaching businesses online as well. And so that's not now what we do today. We not only help them grow their business online, but we also certify new coaches, healers, and spiritual teachers. So yeah.
So how did you know? I mean, because obviously coaching was new to you. Here you're Googling it. You knew you didn't want to do what you were doing, and you wanted a business because that equaled, freedom and all the other things that come with it. But how did you determine what it is you were going to coach? I know you like the whole coaching concept, but how did you determine what it is you'd coach? Because on one hand, I would go, well, I mean, it'd be natural to do some sort of coaching where you include your legal background, but that didn't light you up. So you don't want to do that. So how did you decide what it is you wanted to coach on?
Yeah, great question. Well, actually, interestingly enough, that was sort of my first idea. I thought, well, I'm from sort of this corporate background, and the only kind of coach that I really knew existed was coaches that worked with corporations to help, their employees become the best employees that they could be. So I'd only kind of really had this exposure to corporate coaching. But again, like you said, I really wanted to step away from corporate altogether. For me, it just kind of felt really dull. It felt quite beige. And I saw all these other coaches online that seemed to be doing all these amazing, exciting things that were nothing to do with the corporate world. And I was like, I want to go that way. And what I was doing as I was kind of, training to become a coach and starting to grow my business, I was doing a lot of work on myself. And it was at this point that I really got into sort of spirituality in a big way. I started doing this morning routine. Basically, I read the book. I don't know if you've heard of it. The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've not read it though.
Okay, so that was sort of the book that kind of set me off on this morning routine. And a lot of the rituals in that are kind of based around the law of attraction. So I really kind of started diving into this whole concept that, your thoughts and your beliefs shape your reality. And, whatever you vibrate at is what you're going to create in your physical world. And I think my sort of passion for spirituality and because it was having such a huge impact, I guess, on my own life, I knew that that was something that I wanted to incorporate into my coaching. But I also started to look as well at kind of when it came to sort of figuring out what niche to go into, or what were the things that I'd been through, and what could I use? What about my story would be relevant to my clients? And so the big things for me were, I guess, first of all, my debt. Like, I was really shitty with money for a long time. I think it was because I hated the job so much. I would literally spend like a woman possessed money that I didn't have on credit cards that I couldn't really afford, and then just pretend like none of that ever happened by hiding everything under my bed. So I was in a lot of debt. I had a really dysfunctional relationship with money. And then because of that debt, I had a lot of guilt and shame around it. I hadn't told anybody about my debt. So that was sort of a big point for me. And then also in terms of my own self-worth, I'd been in this relationship where I was engaged and found out he was cheating on me. And so that didn't necessarily leave me feeling very good about myself. So I did a lot of work on myself around money, around my own self-worth. And so when I started learning these techniques that were helping me, I knew that this is something that I would love to be able to do with my clients. So yeah, I started incorporating that into my coaching. So I think it's choosing something that you have some sort of, your stories aligned with. So something that, when you're speaking to your audience, you can actually resonate with them in some way. I think that's really, really important.
I really like that tip because I have two spectrums of people that seem to be attracted to me. One is someone who has no idea, kind of where you were, as you were in a career and a job that you didn't love, and you want a business or you want something else, but you don't know what. There's that spectrum. And the other spectrum are people who are already, knee deep in doing it and want to grow it even further. What can be so hard for entrepreneurs, whether they're seasoned like me, an 11-year entrepreneur, or someone who's just starting, is that sort of like, I'm a fraud, imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to coach on, let's just use your example. Who am I to coach on, self-worth and law of attraction and spirituality when I just started my business? Like, I have no proof of concept. So how did you overcome any of that?
Yes. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, actually, because I get asked this question a lot from my own clients, actually. If I'm just starting out and I'm kind of working on myself and my own self-worth, how can I possibly, be confident helping others? And aren't they, they want the expert, they want somebody who's already been, come out the other side. And actually, I always say that, you don't need to be the perfect example of the results that you're trying to create for your client. You are allowed to be a work in progress, and that is okay. And in fact, more often than not, your clients will love you for it, because if you show your vulnerability, if you show that you're not perfect, if you show that you're doing the work on yourself and, you're on your own journey, it's much more relatable than, let's say, somebody who is, a million miles ahead of you. Sometimes what a client needs is somebody that's just a few steps ahead of them, rather than, them being at chapter 1 and then their coach being at, say, chapter 20 or chapter 100, which can sometimes seem so far removed from where they are at that particular point. So yeah, it's just not putting pressure on yourself to be perfect, because your clients don't actually expect that of you anyway. All your client really cares about is, can this person help me? So let's say, for example, with the money mindset work. So I knew pretty early on that I felt like I discovered the holy grail basically of finance and wealth when I started doing this money mindset work, because oh my God, it really started to have an impact on how I was looking at money and my relationship with money. And at the time, I wasn't doing any sort of money mindset work with my clients because I thought, well, like you said, I felt like a bit of a fraud because I'm like, oh, I've got all of these debts. I shouldn't really be kind of giving anybody any kind of guidance on money, given that I am broke. But I told my clients that this was some of the work that I was doing on myself, and that, I was more than welcome to sort of share with them what I was learning, very kind of informally. It wasn't a formal part of what I was offering, but I was just giving them this sort of extra advice, and they were lapping it up. And of course, I was very open and transparent. And I said, look, this is something that's really helped me. And, it might help you as well. And they were getting so much value from it. So I wasn't saying that, I'm a multimillionaire at this point. I'm making loads of money. I'm financially got my shit together. I wasn't saying that at all. I was just saying, look, I'm on a journey with this. It's really helping me. I think you could really benefit from this too. And they appreciated obviously my honesty with that and transparency. And yeah, like I said, they didn't really care. They were just eager to kind of lap this information up. And of course, it's the information, it's the tools. That's going to be the thing that ultimately is going to help them. So as long as you've got the tools and the guidance and the know-how, that's really all you need.
And I love what you said, because I'm all about like combating our fears and our negative thoughts with facts. Facts will can erase those very quickly, because you can't deny a fact. And you make such a great point in that when you have, someone saying, oh, well, let's just use money mindset, for example. So you have someone teaches money mindset or manifestation or something like that, and that's what they want to do. Yet, like you said, you were starting to educate people about it and you were still in debt. And it's like, well, who am I to do this? Wouldn't someone want to go learn that from a multimillionaire? But you have a great point. Maybe that person who is that far along, it's a little intimidating, or it doesn't quite resonate because it's so many steps ahead of where you're at.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is the thing. The important thing is that you're always, a few steps ahead of those that you actually work with. And, you don't need to know everything that there is to know about your subject matter to be able to help somebody, because sometimes what somebody needs are the basics. So quite often when we are thinking, oh, well, I need to develop my skills and I need to, build up my expertise. Well, not everybody needs that high level of expertise. They just need the simple first steps. So as long as you can give them those, as I said, that can sometimes be what the person is, exactly what they're looking for.
How did you know how to initially package what you wanted to teach into, a service, into something people had to pay for? How did you know how to create an offer that would actually sell? Because what you do teach, if we're sticking with, the money mindset, self-worth, if we're sticking in that genre, it's not a tangible product. It's not like, I am building your sales funnel, and to do this, it costs this much. That's what I mean, you guys, when I say tangible. Or I am teaching you to create Facebook ad campaigns, and I will personally do your campaign for you. That is tangible. So there's a lot of coaching, one of the things that Dani coaches on, that's not as tangible. So could you shed some light on how you packaged something like that?
Yeah, sure. And I guess, and this goes for sort of both kind of areas in which I coach. So I've got sort of this mindset, which, like you said, it's not tangible. And then I've got on the other side something that is very tangible, which is the Clique Elite. And that is, funnels and ads and copy. But I think my experience with both of those and developing both of those programs were essentially the same, in that I started with what I thought would be the best for the client, and I tested it and I tweaked it and I refined it as I went along. So let's say, for example, with my mindset coaching, I was putting together the pieces in a logical order in which I would use those tools and those resources. So everything that I was learning to help my clients, I was actually using as part of my own journey as well. So I was almost kind of my first guinea pig, if that makes sense. I was kind of my own test client. And then, I'd test it with clients and I'd send them through the program and I'd get them their feedback. And maybe that there was some parts of it that they needed to dive into in a little bit more depth, in which case I would pad out that part of the course. Maybe there was some parts that actually didn't work so well for them. So there's certain tools that I've kind of learned along the way that actually they didn't really help me all of that much. And in fact, when I've kind of done them with my clients as well, they've not really kind of given them as much of an impact as what some of the other tools have. So everything has been work in progress. And I think that's the important thing as well, to realize that you don't have to get it right first time, because it's going to only really be through teaching that program and having people go through it that you're able to perfect it, and, it will keep developing. And it was exactly the same with the Clique Elite as well, which is a business coaching program. What it looks like today with this very sort of a complex funnel that we help our clients set up is very different to how it looked in the beginning. And that is based upon client feedback and what was working for them, what was getting them the best results, what was working in my own business and my own experiences. So everything has been based upon what has been happening in real life situations.
How did you attract and land your initial business? Was it through one-on-one clients? How did you do that? Because in 3 months, you were able to quit your job as a lawyer. That's very fast. So tell us more about that.
Yes. So, I was very much online all of the time. So I was basically in a hell of a lot of Facebook groups, which the landscape of Facebook groups has changed slightly since I first started my business. So now there's a lot more rules about being able to promote yourself and actually kind of get clients through groups. The rules have become a lot stricter with other people's Facebook groups. But back then I was in a lot of different groups. I was networking. But I think what I was doing was just getting myself visible. So whether it was on Facebook groups or whether it's on my Instagram. So Instagram was actually something I spent a lot of time on, and it's still now kind of one of our main platforms. I was getting visible. I was sharing value and I was sharing my story. And I think those two things, value and your story, they're always things that people want to hear. Value, because if somebody's struggling with something online and, they're looking for answers, if you're going to be sharing something that's going to help them, they're instantly going to see you as an authority, and they're going to pay attention to you. Your story, I think, is really important, because ultimately there's going to be lots of people that are offering something very, very similar to what you do. But nobody's going to be saying it in the way that you say it. Nobody's going to have your unique story or your background, and your personality. So allowing that to sort of shine through as much as you can, I think, is really, really crucial. So I was just pretty much, as I said, online all the time, and I was strategic in the way that I was doing it. So I knew, obviously, when I first started, let's say, for example, my business Facebook page, I didn't really have a huge audience on there. So I wasn't wasting my time posting a lot of content to my own business page, because I knew the only people that were going to see it would probably be my mom and my grandma, who are not clients. So I was getting in front of other people's audiences. Like I said, in Facebook groups. I also had a blog on my site as well. So I was creating a lot of content on my site, which was driving a lot of traffic back to it. I was also getting other people to contribute to my site, so they were then sharing out their posts. I had a YouTube video, which funnily enough, it was really, really shit video. But for whatever reason, it got a lot of hate, basically, this video. People telling me that my accent was weird, that I waffled on a lot, which admittedly I did in this video. And so people started to comment on it. And of course, when people comment on a YouTube video and that creates engagement, YouTube posts it out to more people. So before you know it, I've got 500,000 views on this one video, which I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, of all the videos it could have been on. And I was tempted to take it off at first. I wanted to delete it because I was like, I sound terrible. I don't really make much sense. People are hating on it. But what it did was it got a lot of views, and then it also drove a lot of traffic to my YouTube page. And from there, I actually went on to get 10,000 subscribers to my YouTube channel, all off the back of this one really shitty video. And then my YouTube channel then, thankfully I got a bit better at making those videos, were then the other videos that I created were then driving traffic back to my site. So I was on a lot of different platforms, just trying to get visible as much as I can. Now things have become a lot more sort of streamlined, so I'm not having to be online as much, thank God. But yeah, in those early days, if there are things that you can do nowadays to grow your audience quicker without you needing to be online, i.e. using Facebook ads, but there is still so much you can do with organic reach as well.
Yeah, it's just like I say to people, since ProjectME is my second business, I use my first business, right? That business funds ProjectME. So since I have the funds, right? There's that line that says money makes money. It's just simply, it's not like you can't do it if obviously you did it and you were in debt. You can go from zero to De Niro, so to speak. Yeah. You can do that. It just can happen faster and at a bigger scale when you have maybe an investor or you have money behind it, because you can pay people to do a lot of the stuff that maybe you don't like to do or have time to do, or you can put money into paid ads.
Yeah. And now, at the time, I did spend money on my business despite my debt. I was like, well, what's another credit card? I spent that obviously getting my training, coaching and things. So kind of all my money that I did have went into that. So things like my website and stuff I had to build myself. So I didn't really have the money to put into ads. However, kind of looking back and looking at how much time it took me, how many hours it took me, like being online, if I could have put money into anything back then, it would have been ads, because of course ads were a lot cheaper back then as well, when not as many people were using them. But they're still, for me now, they are predominantly the way that I grow the Clique. That's pretty much, a lot of that is done through ads, mainly because they work, and second of all, I guess because they're so scalable as well. So yeah, it definitely does help if you do have money to put into your business. However, with social media, there are a lot of things that you can do for free. It just means that if you are resorting to those things, you've got to be prepared to be online a lot, show up a lot, get visible.
What were some of your key mistakes that you've made in the beginning or along the way that you're like, oh my God, if I had someone just telling me point blank, warning, don't do this, that would have avoided a lot of pain for me?
Yeah. Oh, there has been a lot. I'd probably say doing things like launching a low priced digital product at the very beginning when I didn't really have an audience, and nor did I have any money to spend on ads. If you're going to try and sell a product for £50, which I think in dollars is like $70 or whatever, if that's going to be something that you're going to leave your job for, you need to have a significant audience, or you need to be able to get in front of somebody else's significant audience for that to really work. And so I sort of spent a lot of time creating all of these low-end digital products, that I thought might, help my clients. And I then made the mistake of thinking they were just crap and nobody wanted them. But actually the reality was just not enough people were actually seeing them. Because obviously only a small percentage of your audience actually buy anyway. I think more recently, sort of over the past year, was just not outsourcing things, or trying to maintain control of parts of my business that I shouldn't have been trying to control for far too long. So, up until last year, I was still doing pretty much all of the enrollment calls for the Clique Elite, which is our sort of signature program. And this is sort of the business coaching program. I was doing all of those calls, and sometimes I was doing sort of up to 10 calls a day.
Oh
now,
my.
obviously, if you, like thinking back now, like I was a crazy person, but I was so worried about handing that over to somebody else. And I guess this was probably just my ego kicking in a little bit too much. I just felt that, well, if it's my business, people will want to talk to me, and they're only going to sign up if it's me speaking to them. That is not the case at all. I've now realized. And in fact, people don't care if they're speaking to me or not. But for a long time, I really resisted hiring a sales team, which was desperately what my business needed, because I was just getting overwhelmed. I was burnt out, and it was taking me away from what I started the business to do in the first place, which was to coach. I basically was, an employee in my business. I was a sales employee, and, I'm not naturally a salesperson. I don't enjoy sales. It's not really where I want to spend my time. So yeah, it took me a lot longer than what I should have done to outsource that. But then once I did, that's really when, things shifted in a big way. So yeah.
Where would you say, if we were to look at how you generate revenue in your company, is it 25% digital courses, 50% from the Clique Elite?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess my business is actually sort of split into two, in that my Dani Watson, self-love and abundance alchemy, that's sort of my mindset program. That's separate from actually the Clique. So that's kind of branded under two different things. But if we're looking at the Clique, and this again has been some of the changes that I've made. I used to have lots of different offerings going on. And what I realized was that I was diluting my efforts of selling those things. If you've got lots of different things to sell, your efforts to sell them becomes diluted. So, we decided to sort of scale everything back and just have a few core signature offerings. So we don't offer any of the lower priced digital products anymore. We have two options, basically. The certification program, which is the most recent addition, and that is to certify new coaches, healers and spiritual teachers. So that is an online group coaching program. And then we have the Clique Elite, which is our business coaching program. So that's specifically aimed at coaches that already know how to coach. They're ready to work with clients. They just need that help actually getting those clients and getting them in a scalable and automated way. So that's really about helping them. The process that we help them set up, it's called Inspired Action Client Attraction. So it's really about getting clients in an automated way, so that when you do take action in your business, it comes from a place of, I want to do this because I feel inspired to do this, rather than, oh God, I need to be online to get another client, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense, because very quickly, the reason we start a company you can actually become a prisoner in your own company if you're not careful. So I do get what you're saying. Do you work one-on-one with these people still?
No. So I do, so my self-love and abundance alchemy. So that was what I started off doing, purely one-on-one. And now that's become a purely, group coaching program. So there's no sort of way in which to work with me one-on-one in that sense. However, from time to time, because I still really love one-on-one, I find that it's the one-on-one for the mindset work. At least I find, seeing these women have these incredible breakthroughs and just kind of blossom into the best versions of themselves and manifest all of these amazing things. I still find that experience really magical. So every now and again, when when I'm feeling inspired to do so, I might put an offer out that I have a one-on-one space available, but typically you can't kind of go to my site and sign up to work with me one-on-one. The Clique Elite is, it's a bit of I guess a different one, because it's not just me coaching people. They actually get access to my team. So they get one-on-one support, but it isn't actually me that's, in their business with them. It's all of the different experts that they need to get their business off the ground. So it will be a copywriter that's creating the copy for them, or, the Facebook ad strategist helping them with their ad strategy. Then they have a group coaching call, which is weekly, and that's sort of in a group session. But yeah, I soon realized that as much as I do really actually enjoy one-on-one, it's only going to take you so far. And if you want to impact a lot of people, you need to think how you can take your offering and put it into a group setting or some sort of scalable product.
I love what you said about, looking back, a mistake you made is offering, some low dollar amount courses. And it's something that I see repeatedly when I'm working with one-on-one clients or group settings, or when I go and, speak somewhere and people come up to me, they say, I've created all these things. I have 10 different courses and they're, $29, $59, $17. Well, number one, when you offer too many things, people get overwhelmed and then they pick nothing.
Yeah, yeah, so true.
Think of even when you go, and that's a principle when you go to an actual store, like an actual, not like necessarily like the grocery store, but you go to an actual department store. That is something they teach in merchandising school, is if you have too much of the same thing, then someone gets overwhelmed and they pick nothing. So you don't want to do that. But I love what you said about the price points, because so many people, especially starting out, including myself, quite frankly, since again, ProjectME is my second business, it's a digital based business. My other business is not, there is a temptation, because I want to help so many people at different access points and price points. I keep having this temptation to want to offer these low price, high value courses. But you better make sure that you have the right funnel set up and it can get in front of a ton of eyes, because otherwise you'll end up making $1,000.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there when you said sort of about the funnel. When I was starting out, I don't think I even knew what a funnel was. So, I was creating these like low price courses and just expecting people to land on my website. If you're selling something at a low price, you need to be getting that in front of a hell of a lot of people. But I know what you're saying as well about sort of the big impact thing, because I really struggled with that, thinking that, okay, well, I want to offer something affordable for those that really need the help, but perhaps, aren't able to afford to work with a high level coach or, join a group coaching program. But actually what I found is sometimes if you give too much for a very low price, people don't value it anyway. And they don't necessarily, if somebody's really, really struggling with something, you want to make sure that they take action and they commit and they actually get the transformations that they need to get. And sometimes I know I've done it before where I've purchased things and think, oh, it's only $100 or whatever, and then I forget about it because I've not got any skin in the game. I've not had to invest that much. So, it's a difficult one, wanting to kind of impact a lot of people, but then also wanting to make sure that those people actually show up and do the work.
Yes. And I'm guilty of that too. I call it like, instead of people like doing like me doing like a late night, like internet shopping, I'll like have late night purchasing of random courses.
Yes,
and I'm sure there's like 5 or 6 I've purchased and I have not participated in any of them. I don't even remember. I probably don't even remember. And if I'm being really honest, there's some higher price point courses that I didn't even finish because there was too much information, to your point. Even in a course that was, I think the price point was like maybe between $1,200 to $1,600. And I started it and it got overwhelming. There was too much in there. Does that make sense?
That completely makes sense. And that's so interesting you say that, actually, because I had this exact problem when I first started creating the Clique Elite, in that I was giving my audience, thinking I was doing them a favor, giving my clients so much information. But then what was happening is that they were getting a bit overwhelmed, and they would then start procrastinating, because overwhelm, it creates fear, it creates panic. And the next thing you know, that they're not doing anything. And so what we actually did with the Clique Elite is that we really, really stripped it back in terms of the information that we were giving them. And we were just giving them on what they needed to know, rather than me adding in all of these other extras, because I thought, oh, they'll find this helpful. They'll thank me for putting this extra, PDF workbook in there. No, they don't need that. Like, that's going to detract them away from what they really needed to be focusing on. So my motto now is keep it simple but significant. So do less, but just do it better.
That's perfect, because I get it. I understand what people are thinking is, okay, I am offering this at this price point, so I need to, give them this free PDF, this extra freebie, this bonus, this da-da-da-da-da-da, because now there's a higher likelihood they're going to buy because they're getting so much. That is not necessarily true. Like, we go back to what Dani said earlier, is that you are solving a problem. You're helping people with something they need help with. And you are delivering it in a way that appeals to them, that they feel comfortable and safe learning from. It's as simple as that. No one cares. I'm not a graphic artist. No one cares when I do masterminds, anything, that they don't get like 800 beautiful PDFs to go along with it. No one cares.
Yeah. It's so true. And I think what you said as well about kind of making things look beautiful and pretty, like, obviously, like, I love things to look nice, but I soon realized actually it just needs to be functional. It just needs to do its job. And we used to have this really kind of super fancy, glossy, glitzy, like behind the scenes membership part of our site for our clients. And then when we stripped everything back, I was like, you know what? I'm going to actually strip back the way in which the content's delivered as well. And it was actually all just put into Dropbox files. It was just all of the content that they needed, but it was, again, just on a need to know basis. There was no kind of added fluff in there. And I was really worried about doing that at first, because my brand, a lot of it is based on how it looks. And I thought, oh, what are the clients going to think? But again, the clients don't care. If they're getting results, which is really the only thing that they're paying you for, they don't actually care what your worksheets look like, or what font you used, or what cute little pictures that you put in the corner of your workbooks. They don't care.
No. And my longtime coach is $10,000 a month. And I get text messages and emails, and I could care less, and spreadsheets, because he's of an older generation. Now he has tons of people who could create fancy, pretty things for me, and his other clients if they want, but I don't really care. What do I care? As long as it is doing its job and it's functional, I don't care that it's, has gold foil, and I really don't. I value the information, the simplicity, and how it's delivered.
Absolutely. And simplicity, and just keeping things on a need to know basis, like that gets far better results than just overwhelming people and then them not actually taking any action.
So where can people get more of you? Tell us where's the best entry point for people to check you out?
So the website is wearetheclique.com, but you can find me on Instagram. So that's at we_are_the_clique. Not the easiest to actually say. Basically, we are the clique, but with underscores. So yeah, you can find me on both of those platforms.
Excellent. And I will make sure you guys, all that's in show notes. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode and, us going through the process of what it looks like to, leave a corporate job and figure out what the hell it is you want to do, and then doing it and then scaling it. You got that all in this episode. And so that Dani and I know if you found this valuable, if you really like it, take a screenshot of you guys listening to the episode and then direct message it to me at ProjectME with Tiffany, and then I'll be able to share it and tag Dani as well in Instagram stories and on Facebook. We'd really love to see that you love this episode, and if you got something great out of it and everything we talked about, let us know that too. This way we can keep giving you more and more content and interviews and tips and strategies that are in alignment with it. So thanks so much for listening, and Dani, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.